All right, call the meeting to order. Is there anything that needs to be amended on the agenda, or are we good to approve as written?
You're good on my end.
Good.
I would just like to take a moment of silence today for the students that were shot in Milwaukee, Wisconsin today.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I thought you were going to say home to silence because this is Chris's last night to be chair.
I saw that snicker and I'm like, uh-oh.
That's what I thought you were doing.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
So we do have 3 appointments this evening, so we're going to try to keep the appointments to the 15, 20 minutes as written or better. So if the discussions get a little long-winded tonight, we may cut it down a little bit just to stay inside our window here. So we have, so Frank's with us first tonight. Frank is the Bethel's representative to the White River Valley Ambulance. So he was gonna kind of come here and talk about a little bit in regards to their budget. We'll try not to hurt you too bad, Frank.
Yeah, the microphone's over here.
So it's nice meeting everybody, and thank you for a thankless job.
They're all thankless jobs, right?
I'm a relatively new full-time person to Bethel, but I had a house in Gainesville in '03, and then I bought a house in Bethel, Olympus, in 2009, and I moved up here almost 4 years ago, full-time. But when I was in New Jersey, I had a 30-year career managing the finance and operations for a public school system, and was also the secretary to the Board of Education and sat through countless meetings.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I'm very familiar with the challenges that municipalities and schools face, and also, you know, Warren faces many of the same challenges because we're a nonprofit, but we kind of operate, you know, in that public realm because we either take in fees from services, and what we can't take in, we ask the municipalities for help. So we're very cognizant of what is happening across the state this year with property taxes. And we've tried to minimize the impact, and we know that the impact is a little bit larger than we would like it because we had to pass that on to communities, and we're in the service industry. So our whole budget's about $2.1 million. You 1.6 million is salaries and benefits because that's what we do. We provide staff to, you know, service the various communities. So we're all facing those same difficulties with the cost of benefits, you know, skyrocketing and trying to be competitive with salaries. You know, the EMS market is not really a high labor pool. So if we don't, and we had a lot of discussions about that, if we don't keep pace, we have a hard time staffing, and if we can't staff, we can't respond to calls. So it's this delicate balance of trying to be cognizant of how much we're asking for. And unfortunately, unless, you know, most of our money in terms of billable runs comes from Medicare and Medicaid. That's the vast majority of the money that we take in. And unless they increase how much gets reimbursed, you know, we're kind of limited to how much we can generate in those areas. And we're limited, you know, we kind of track the runs that we make. And so I'm relatively new to understanding that. So what I did to try and get an understanding is I went to the last 3 years, and I had the accounting company just download stuff for the last 3 years, and then I kind of made columns and right-aligned everything so I could see trends and see what happened. And we took that and we aligned to 2024, and then we dropped in 2025 so we could look at a 5-year comparison to understand what's happening, to see what's level, to see where we've made increases, and to see if it makes sense. So we kind of abandoned the old budget format because nobody really understood it.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And the numbers weren't coming from the accounting firm. And I'm a big believer because of my experience is that the only numbers that matter are the numbers that are being generated and we're reconciling to, and those are the numbers. So we took those numbers and we ran with those numbers and kind of abandoned everything that had been done. So it was a little bit of a learning curve for me, for everybody else, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to give us all a clear understanding about what's driving our expenses and where we need to go and the things that we need to do. We talk about per capita, so the bylaws generate, and it's based on the 10-year census, and that's the breakdown and apportionment between the towns and how much gets raised. So our budget is requesting an $8 per capita increase, and it's higher than we would have liked, but there's a couple of challenges that we had to face, namely the current year's budgeted for a deficit. I don't know why.
I don't either.
Because it's not like they're flush with cash and all these massive reserves that can really handle. And if you look back to the last 2 or 3 years, Werber's actually lost money. There's only so many years we could lose money. You know, we can't keep funding the budget from reserves because we don't have these mounting reserves. And that's very similar to municipalities and schools and the life that I live. So one of the things that we try to do is put a balanced budget together. So that balancing the budget was like $3 per capita just to get there. We'd also had, and I don't know the reason why, but years, the last few years, we put a line in for allowance for bad debt. And then when the budget was presented and finalized, it was backed out at the end. And that number is about $60,000, but we don't have a reserve for bad debt. You know, we have assets in reserve, we have other prepaids that get backed out, but there's no reserve for bad debt. So we were losing money. We lost $175,000 last year. And when I said that to the Werber board, nobody understood that. And if there's one thing that I would say to you and to the Werber board is one of the things that I'll do is I'll be able to provide clarity and a clear picture so that we know where we stand and what's driving everything, and that it shouldn't be a surprise where we end up at the end of the year. So one of the things we're looking to do is we're tracking things, we're projecting accounts, we're trending things, we put some stuff together on the back end so that each month we can look at stuff and we can compare what's happening versus what's budgeted and then, you know, be able to pivot. That's what we have to do, right? We put a budget together months ahead of time, and then all of a sudden things happen that we didn't anticipate, and we're juggling.
Absolutely, it's what we do. We're 18 months out, so your crystal ball's a little cloudy, and we look at it every month. Okay, where are we off? Because I'm $13,000 short in my budget this current year for Warva. So I'm already starting to, okay, where am I going to come up with this money so that I don't have a shortfall? What can I cut out of the existing budget because our projection is obviously too low. So it happens, but so I completely understand.
So hopefully, as we move forward, we'll have an understanding and we'll know, you know, 2 or 3 months into the year, if we look at these accounts, if we're trending, you know, either favorably, unfavorably in different areas, we need to proactively make adjustments. And I don't know how much of that was really being done. I mean, when I talk to people that, you know, have been sitting there, I don't think necessarily, and again, we're asking volunteers to do this. So when I saw the opportunity that came up, I kind of had a unique background that I understood that. I don't understand the ambulance and Medicaid reimbursement rates and all the stuff that I do, but I understand how municipal budgets and nonprofit budgets work. And I also was on the EMS side for over 30 years in New Jersey, so I understand that other side. So I thought it was, you know, a good fit, and I could do something to give back to the community that I live in now. And
is it your 50-year anniversary? Is that what the sign is?
we had our 50th year anniversary, yep.
Yeah. Did they do a campaign like for extra fundraising or anything on to try to build up your reserves or buy an ambulance or whatever?
You know, that was in September, and I really probably came on in August, July, so I don't know how much was done before that, but I know that they were trying to, you know, publicize. We did a lot of raffles. We had some very generous business owners that gave us some great gifts. We made several $1,000s on the raffles.
Great.
And I think one of the things we need to do is we need to look at alternatives so that, you know, alternative revenue streams so that we're not continually going back to municipal taxes because it's not an unlimited pot and people are saturated.
Yeah.
I mean, so when we tried to look at this stuff, there were some things that we wanted to do. We don't have an equipment reserve. We have very expensive equipment.
Oh, wow.
We don't have a reserve. It was, at one point, there was a couple of $100,000 in it, and we had an annual appropriation, and apparently, 3 to 5 years ago, that got taken out, but we still have equipment needs.
Yeah.
So one of the things when we started with the budget is our original draft had the equipment reserve. We haven't been audited, which was kind of not concerning to me, but just when you're dealing with that much money, an audit is it's a check and balance to make sure that everything is being done right. It's not trusting or not trusting people.
No.
It's about controls and protecting taxpayer funds that half the budget's comprised of.
I
So we put money in for an audit, and we were at $8, and we're like, what do we do? So we back that out. Our hope is that we're going to end up this year we're going to end up in the black this year. Everything seems to be trending that way. And if we do end up generating revenue, we want to put some money aside into an equipment reserve and set some money aside up so we can actually get audited, because it's been 5 or 6 years since our last audit, just to make sure that we're starting clean and that everything is fairly stated and accurate.
Well, we obviously, thank you for, serving in that capacity for us. And, a lot of people in town probably don't realize that there are a lot of volunteer positions that individuals like yourself do, with our neighboring partners. So, it takes a lot of time, and
Yeah.
more times than not, you don't get paid. And things like that. Now, for us as the board, the Warva budget is pretty easy for us because it's a standalone item.
Yep.
So it's always been its own line item. So it goes up, down, whatever it does, it gets voted from the floor, which, I would imagine will stay that way.
Yeah.
I would say that, so we had, when I first got on the board, we had some issues at that time with Warva, with the rates had gone up substantially. And then for, I don't know, maybe the last 4 or 5 years, they had moved it all. And then here, this will be the 3rd year in a row that we've had a pretty significant increase. So it's kind of like, who's guiding the ship there?
And that's...
Because we're looking at, because the challenge is not only has it gone up 30% in 3 years to the taxpayers, but, you guys are on a calendar-based budget where we're on a June,
Yeah.
June to June budget. So we're always having to take that guesstimate of where we think that 6 months is gonna go.
Yeah.
And right now, we're off by 13 grand. So
Yeah.
I think what would be helpful would be on town meeting days is maybe to get up and explain
Yeah.
some of that to the townsfolk, because I think obviously people don't want costs to go up, but I think if they're able to hear some of the challenges that Warver had or does have, and how it sounds like there's some good fixes in place.
There's some really,
Yeah.
I mean, if you take that, so if you take that allowance is $60,000, that's like $5 per capita, and you take the deficit that's $3, we're up $8. So we've managed everything else
Yeah.
within that budget. And unfortunately, we can't ignore the fact that we had to raise that money to fix these things, but I don't anticipate that happening again next year, because we've cleared that up.
Yeah.
And I don't know that anybody knew that we were really running in a deficit. So the one thing that I will say is that as long as I'm here and we're looking at this stuff, we're looking at it holistically, and we're looking to see what happens, and that was my lifeblood. I mean, I had a $70 million operating budget across 3 towns, and had to make everything match, and had to identify things and shuffle things around to make sure that we balance stuff within our 2% cap. And I would never, from that standpoint, I would never yo-yo. I mean, it's the worst thing you can do, because nobody remembers the years that you went down and you stayed flat.
That's true.
But at some point, you have to make up for that. It doesn't happen. So during that time, we depleted our reserves. We did all this stuff. I don't know why those decisions were made, and not that it doesn't matter, but all we can do is move forward and look ahead. And the one thing that I can say is, for Warva and for this town, is that there shouldn't be any surprises that people don't know about. like Therese was talking to me, we were talking about next year.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be in a position where we're sitting here in December where we don't have an idea of what we think next year is going to look like. We're not going to know now, but we'll know 6, 7 months into the year how things are trending and what's going to happen and how that's going to correlate. Like we always look at 3 years, right? We look at the year that ended, we look at the year that we're in, and we look at next year. And it's this flow, and all those numbers need to come together. So I think that the organization is well-run. I think that if you look at what's happened with our salaries over the years, and you look at other expenses, you can see that that stuff has remained really stable, like surprisingly stable.
Yeah.
It's just the big wild cards are, how much bills and how much the insurers, because we bill a certain amount and the insurance companies adjust it. And that seems to be the biggest wild card from the revenue standpoint in terms of the difference between what we bill out and what gets ultimately paid.
And you have the same challenges we do. Salaries, health insurance went crazy this year. I mean, you have some of the same challenges we do.
Well, because
So-
you provide services.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we understand that. So I was really appreciative of your email because I had told the select board, I said, look, I'm taking the 3-year average, which is 10.2, so that's what I'm multiplying because I don't want to be in the hole again. This year I'm going to make it up, and I'm already searching for ways to, I was talking to Kelly about it today. She was saying, I make no. I'm like, just say no. I'm like, I need to make up $13,000 this year, so no. And she was like, okay. So so it's hard to know what's happening. So that's what I budgeted my next 6 months. That was just your 3-year average. And if I'm high, I'm high. Then it goes into the undesignated fund balance and fine. But if something happens, then it's there, so.
Yeah, so we're, all the members on the Warburg board, again, I'm the new person, right?
Yeah.
And I'm coming in and I'm, we're looking at this stuff and, nobody was happy about it at all.
Absolutely.
And we're hoping that after we get through this year that we can have more balanced increases that nobody still wants to pay.
Yeah. You're right.
But it's a valuable service and it's a challenge. I mean, I really don't know how they accomplish all that they do given the terrain and the weather and mud season and all the stuff that's being, we send, I don't know if you get the monthly call reports,
No.
the logs.
No, just the financials.
I get some yearly data.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
So, all that stuff is easily shared, but,
Yeah.
if you look at the calls that come in from each of the communities and the average response time and all that stuff, it's eye-opening that in this geographical area and the terrain that they have to cover, how reasonably they respond to things.
We
So,
hear them because we have a radio in the office, so we can hear them, and it's crazy. Sometimes they're just back to back to back, and so it is, and it's definitely a service we all appreciate, but I definitely am happy to meet you in person.
Yeah, we're
And
happy
so
to meet you
glad
guys.
that you found your way to Warbud, so a great fit for us.
Yep.
So.
And I'll definitely show up at town meeting day. I may need some guidance because I've never been to one.
That's
I heard
fine.
it could be interesting,
Yeah.
so,
We'll email or come by or something, or chat before that.
okay,
Yeah. Thank you.
sure.
Question, but I don't know. Is there a way to taper up the increase maybe over a couple of years as opposed to going bang and then having to I mean, we had to do the same thing way back when. We had a budget that was like this, and we've worked over the years to try to keep it on a level.
The problem that we have is we don't have reserves. I mean, we have about $300,000 in our savings accounts, which is not a lot of money. We don't have an equipment reserve. We don't have, we own a building. It's a small amount of money. The hope is if we can generate some money this year that we can start building those reserves. But, we lost a significant amount of money last year, and the hope is to trend that so that we're breaking even or we're generating money that we can then, best thing in the world is you generate money, you bolster your reserves up, it's less that you need to budget for. And we had to buy a truck. The payment that we had to absorb, the new payment was almost $60,000 that we had to add to the budget of $2 million. It was a significant impact, but we didn't have an equipment reserve and we couldn't buy it outright. We had to finance it. Interest rates are high. Those are all the challenges that we have because we didn't have the money set aside to do it. So now we're paying, 6 or 7% on a loan that, if we had a reserve, but, we didn't. So, they're trying to do everything that they can. We talked about, how can we budget for another deficit? Like, how can we anticipate it when we don't have that money and we don't have reserves, and we know that these things are coming down the line? So, these were all challenges that the board was faced with, that, they're trying to balance. And I think when we realized that basically this $8 correction was to basically correct the budget and right align it, and that we did manage to do everything else, we managed to, we're planning to switch health insurance carriers.
Yep.
And we're going to a semi-self-funded mode, so we're going to go through that anguish of changing carriers because we're going to save money by doing it. So we're trying to take all those other steps to minimize how much we need, but we don't have these pools of money to draw from, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's hard, you can't budget for another deficit year.
And you can see, I saw those histories of the decreases in the years that were
Yeah.
flat.
We did that for years here.
Yeah, and it's hard, basically, if the
Been
can gets
there.
kicked down the road, it's tough,
Yeah.
eventually you gotta pick it up. We did, when I came a few years ago, we ended up that Bethel had a deficit, and we finally just had to budget for it, and we're
Yep.
making a
Well, you were
payment every
carrying
year.
it for years.
Yeah, finally the day comes, you gotta pay the piper.
Yeah,
so.
that's the way we used to be. I mean, we didn't have equipment funds. They just, every so many years, we vote a $300,000 piece of equipment,
So hopefully, if you're more
Expensive.
proactive, it sounds like you're in a much more proactive instead of,
Yeah.
the whole goal is we want to get to a proactive state, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not reacting to what's happening. And if you can get to that area and you can plan it out, that if we can get to those areas and get those reserves back up and have a plan that we can be a lot more stable and just worry about the salary and benefit increases and all that other stuff. So
Great. Well, it
that's-
sounds like you guys are totally on the right track, and we've had those growing pains too, so we're just happy to meet you in person, and thank you for the explanation. It's really helpful.
And I just have a question, because I don't know. What if from the floor, the Warburg budget was voted down?
I asked that question too.
What does it default back to? Like a lot of budgets, if you vote them down, like it defaults back to your previous 80% of your previous budget or something like that. Does anybody have any idea
No.
what would happen if that got voted down?
I can tell you, I have the book right
Like,
here.
would
I
we
was looking at
divert back to last year's budget at a
No.
certain percentage of it, or?
So the
I think it's
difficulty is
down.
that it's spread out among 10 towns.
Yeah, oh yeah, I know.
So I asked that question, and I said, what happens? Is
Yeah.
it like the plurality, if 5 towns vote yes and 4 towns vote no? And the answer that I got is that it's never happened.
Right, that's my,
It doesn't happen until it happens, right? Oh, I guess,
Right
so the
here.
first part would be, like, cost-wise, is how would it be budgeted? But the second thing would be serviceability-wise, like, I would imagine that service wouldn't stop because it got voted down, but I don't know what the next steps,
It-
other than you would
you can.
re-advertise for another vote of it.
Yeah, you'd have to do that for sure, but it says that, items can be amended up or down. New line items cannot be added, but existing line items can be deleted. And it talks about, but the moderator has final decision on whether a proposed amendment is germane and allowable. Some amendments are obviously not allowable, others are a judgment call. But I think that most likely it would, if it happened, no, it would be nothing. We'd have to
You have to rewarn
We'd
it,
have to hold a
and-
special meeting and rewarn it, because it wouldn't default to anything. It's not a school budget, it'd be gone. However, I think that it would be rare, because remember, what people are reacting to is the budget that we've put forward, which is half actual and half an estimate of 10.2%. Whereas I think if we explain that to folks, to say, look, we know the first 6 months, we don't know the last 6, so we're doing a 3-year average. If I'm high, then it goes in undesignated fund balance. But no, we'd have to rewarn a special meeting, like a town meeting. We would just do it via a select board meeting, because they would get nothing. It
Yeah,
doesn't default to anything.
I think it's good to know the answer to that, because from our standpoint, what happens if 5 towns pass it and 4 towns don't, or if 1 town doesn't?
Yeah.
I know when I worked in a regional school, it was the plurality
Yeah.
and the majority of everybody carried. So even if a town voted no, if the other two towns supported it, it went through, and that caused,
Yeah.
but I'll see if we can,
So I know the closest it ever came was, I want to say about 7 years ago, Randolph had talked about pulling out.
Right.
Which, they're I don't know what their stake is in it, but it's
They're the biggest-
40% or something like
they're the
that.
biggest stake, yeah.
So it was, and I think we are like a quarter or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah. So it's-
So
yeah.
everybody was kind of up in arms, like, how would we make up 40%? And,
Right, exactly.
And, of course, we went into the whole exercise of like, okay, if we did our own service, how much that would cost, which we quickly found out was like $500,000 or something, just to have our own service. And,
Yeah.
but, I just always wonder those questions because,
We would roll, obviously, we have until July 1, but we would have to have another meeting.
Yeah.
They would walk away with 0, we would do the Australian ballot, and we would talk, or not Australian ballot, excuse me, we'd have another town meeting or special meeting. It would be a special meeting. We'd vote again from the floor. But I think if we explain to voters that part of this increase is us using a 3-year average to be on the cautious side, that's where we're at, so.
Okay.
But yeah,
The interesting thing about Randolph, we can't find a rep to go on the board, and they're the largest contributor. And, so one of the answers to Randolph is if you're really
Yeah.
concerned about it, put somebody in the board and
Right.
have somebody show up at these meetings and, get involved.
I'm surprised.
Yeah. So,
And I know a lot, we know about boards and a lot of people don't want to sit on boards, right? But, it also in some cases takes a special person, to bring to that job of, maybe some financing or whatever that position is, so,
Yeah,
but.
exactly. That's where we're at now. But yeah, it's tough.
Well, thank you for diving in and
We
we appreciate you. I know you're new on the job, but
yeah.
It sounds like you've got a great handle on it, so I'm really happy to hear that the things
Yeah.
that you're putting in place and that you guys are working
Yeah, we're
towards.
not-
It's,
And I think everybody thinks that I think everybody understands things a little bit better, and, we can have more intelligent conversations about where we actually stand as opposed to not knowing.
absolutely,
So-
absolutely. Well, it's great. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, we'll touch base before town meeting and let you know. It's
Okay?
going to be a little bit just like this, pretty much. People asking questions, or you just getting up and making a statement about the budget. Sometimes people have no questions, so you just make a statement and then we vote and you're done.
Okay. All right.
sounds good.
All right, thank you so
Frank.
much, Frank.
All right. So, just kind of continuing on, we've been discussing the law enforcement piece of our budget, which currently sits with, or we have been working with the Sheriff's Department in Windsor County. So there had been a few questions that have been kicked around from not just the, I'll call it the listening session, but from our group of citizens, but also just from the board. And I think as we are trying to narrow in on the budget, we're trying to, again, for anybody that hasn't followed it, is, we have substantially increased the budget in this area over the last couple of years. And again, we're looking at, potentially, making a substantial increase or not, or somewhere in the middle, or,
Yeah.
But I think some of the questions that we have at this time more really is just kind of balancing out that,
Expectations, right?
how much money we put into this, how much can we get out of this? And some of the, not to say that these are all the problems, but, kind of summarizing a majority of the issues that we have in the municipality right now that came up on the community surveys was, the biggest things are, for the most part, are traffic type enforcement. And then, we do have several spots throughout the town that are worrisome when it comes to drugs and things like that. So we're kind of just really at this point just trying to figure out as we narrow in our budget on how much we want to spend, how many more hours we want to put into this is, based on how many more hours, what will we get out of that? Or what do we think we can get out of that? So we invited Ryan back, just kind of go through.
I think there was, Dave had some specific questions. Maybe it's easier to have the select board ask Ryan your specific questions first, and it might answer some of the audience questions.
I guess we've heard conversation about what come up as a question out of that is,
Don't ask me questions.
we know we want to do the traffic, we know we want to, but a few of us are really concerned about the drug trafficking. So I guess the biggest question is, we had heard that there wasn't a lot you could do. So the question directly to you is, what can you do concerning the people that are buying, selling, trafficking drugs?
There's a lot of nuance to this, right? There's a lot of, it's not a black and white answer, but I think what you've seen so far from us, right, we've targeted some of those areas that are of high concern. In that time, we've pulled 2 or 3 guns off these folks that we've seized. We're working with our state and federal partners to move these cases forward and, in the federal world. We also, we've helped recover a stolen car, all this. Somebody's still in jail from those cases. So I think one of the things that I see, the more proactive you are, yes, folks get picked up, and oftentimes it's not like they're going to go right to jail and sit in jail, right? But we have had at least one of those folks out of 3 that I can think of still sitting in jail, right, from proactive police work that my folks did. VSP, we gave the case, the stolen car case, to VSP as it was originally in their car, but my K-9 team and one of my other deputies tracked this person down, found him hiding under somebody's porch. Were able to go back and find a bag with some interesting things in it, including one of them was a gun. So we are working hard with the hours that we have to target some of the areas of concern. We're working within the confines of the Vermont judicial system that, hey, sometimes it takes quite a few charges to get somebody held. But I think we're doing a fairly good job of putting pressure on these places the best that we can. Again, we don't have a ton of hours when you look at our current allotment, and I understand all the budgetary stuff, so I'm not begging for, but it's 1/7, I think, of a week, of a 24-hour, 7-day a week. We're here 1/7 of a week. So from that standpoint, we're working real hard on that. I have a very competent team. I've got some paperwork that as I was leaving today, I kind of tweaked it from another request for information I had. So there's a couple typos in there. Apologize for that. But we have a very competent team that we do a lot of training. I have people that are drug recognition experts. I have people that are field training officers. We've gone through a litany of training. So when we're questioned about the quality or the competency of my agency, I can tell you that we can do just about anything in this state. We do have folks investigating serious felonies. Myself and my lieutenant interrupted a kidnapping a couple months ago that was coming through Woodstock, and we worked with the FBI on that. So we have the certifications, the abilities, the competencies to deal with literally anything, probably up into a murder. And I have that's going to obviously go to Vermont State Police Bureau of Criminal Investigations, but about anything under that, we're dealing with. So in regards directly to the drug dealing stuff, a neighbor called last week, said, hey, somebody just stole my friend's package from my yard. And I had 3 deputies up there shaking him down. They brought it back, so it was kind of we're digging into that a little bit further, but we are trying to be as responsive as possible and work with as much, the hours that we have. But I think, hey, one of these guys is off the street because of what we've done, and I would expect some other things coming down the road.
So with the 24 hours you have now, we know what you're doing. We've heard from you. We've seen it happening. If you, what can we expect from additional hours? Can we can we guide you to, okay, we want you to do more of the drug, what do I want to say? Yeah, interventions.
Yep.
Right, and keep doing what you're doing with your traffic or your domestics or whatever. But just if you were to get more hours, can we ask you to devote the most of that towards the drug issues that we have?
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, as Frank had said, it's very similar in EMS. To me, this is a service industry, right? And our job, we're a contract and service provider to you, and I want the town to be happy with the service that they're getting. So really tailoring that to what you guys want, what you guys need as a town, that's a priority to me. And I think that I think Therese and Jordan and I have, as kind of the points of contact, I think we've had a pretty good relationship so far with that. I think we're good at balancing those needs, and yeah, I'm never, well, I won't say never, but for the most part, we try to tailor our service to your town.
So because we need to go into this with expectations because of the money we're going to spend, what we're getting is, you're telling us about some good things that have happened, but with those of us who live near these drug places, it doesn't seem like much.
Sure.
But I guess what I'm hearing is you're saying, we could expect similar results. Meaning, you got, just for numbers, you find 10 offenders, and we're going to be lucky if we get one of them off the street. Something like that?
Sure.
I'm just trying to set it up so that we don't come back and say, hey, you said you would do this.
Yeah,
or
totally.
whatever. We want to be able to keep this good conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just to jump in, so kind of just so people can kind of follow along. So, up until last year, we had a constable in some type of capacity here for, many years. And the goal through the town was always to have somewhere around 20 hours of service a week in town. And that was through the constable, and sometimes they shared from communities or however that went. So that was kind of all of our, granted at that time, the constable pretty much did mostly some speed enforcement and animal type duties. Very seldom got involved in anything else, unless happened to be in the middle of it or something. So right now we are in the 22, 24 hours a week.
24, yeah.
So the current budget, we budgeted $80,000, which was just to kind of introduce the sheriff's department into our community and start to see how that might look, picking up, completely closed down the constable, basically because, as we know, that we weren't getting any service through that. And I think the discussion that I think where we're having our challenges right now, Ryan, is, well, one, it's a budgetary season. Everybody's budgets are pretty chaotic. Two, we have some elevated service needs from our community. And we're trying to just kind of figure out, because we haven't even got a full year with the sheriff's department, right? So we're only half into this. So we're trying to say, okay, if we're paying you $80,000 now for 22 to 24 hours a week, and this is kind of the service we're seeing, and it seems like, Dave, correct me wrong, or Jordan, that we're contemplating on something somewhere around 36 hours a week, which, will be like a time and a half more of what you're doing now for another 60,000. So we're kind of trying to say, if we gave you 1.5 more times in the community, what else do you think we can get done in the community with some of these needs that we have, other than traffic enforcement? Now, you could just say, I'm sorry, but, we can put these people in jail, but to back out 10 minutes later, and we understand that. I'm just trying to, if we ask the voters for $60,000 more for, 12 hours or 14 hours more a week, what extra service do you think that we could get out of that, realistically?
Yeah, and I think it's more of a, you're going to get more of the service that you're getting. It allows me to put more resources into it, right? I mean, we had a scenario a couple months back where the calls that I was fielding from folks in the community was pretty significant, and I sent, I think, 5 or 6 deputies up here, right? We ended up chasing one of the major players around twice, got into a foot pursuit with him. One of my deputies actually tweaked his leg a little bit in the process, and the guy had $19,000, 4 different sets of warrants. 3 of those were for failing to appear at court. So he went to jail for the weekend. We seized his vehicle, did some other stuff. But, you know, I think more hours is going to be more of this, of the same. I'm not saying that, like, we're already giving you, like, a lot. I mean, there's a lot of effort that we're putting into this. I don't think there's going to be anything magical that, you know, for what you're looking for. Am I going to be able to dedicate a single person? You know, it's not a full-time equivalent scenario. I think that being able just to throw more resources at this, you say it's 1.5 times more than what you're getting now, I guess would be the answer. I can assure you that I'm working with my state and federal partners. I'm not going to get into that a whole lot, but, you know, we're doing the best we can. I think the more of a presence that you have in town, the more opportunity there is to deal with some of these folks, to be even more responsive when there's a call for service that maybe other agencies are not going to respond to. Sometimes you're lucky with state police, they're able to respond quickly, sometimes they're not. So we're trying to be very, very responsive. You know, the more time you have in town, the more service you're going to get from us of what you're getting now.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the select board and myself, that we understood what we were getting. I didn't want to set you up for failure by thinking you're going to kill the drug problem with 36 hours a week, because that's unrealistic. I just wanted to make sure that the select board and myself understood what you were offering, and we knew so what they could make a decision. But do you
I
have
guess-
questions for?
Well, I guess like the basic question is, everybody wants to know is the extra going to help you to solve the problems? Or is it just going to be just a little bit more and it's just kind of the same deal? Is it enough? Is it not enough? Is that?
I don't think you can solve
So the
the
answer to your
drug
question
problem.
is yes. I think that it will help. I'm not sure how much it's going to help. I mean, I know percentage-wise from what you've been spending, it's a pretty significant percentage, but, you know, was 32 hours a week is like 20% of the week that we'd be here, you know, when you're talking about a 24-hour clock. So it's a fairly significant increase from a budgetary standpoint for you guys. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a ton of police presence. I think communities that have a similar problem have 2 to 3 or more full-time equivalent positions, and I get that that's probably not realistic in this budget system. I mean, in my personal opinion, I think Bethel probably needs 2 or 3 full-time equivalent positions in your town from what I'm seeing on some of these places that some less than reputable business is going on, right? And it's not trying to upsell you or anything. I really believe that in my heart, that you've probably been under policing for years just because it's been easy to rely on state police, that between, you know, staffing and culturally that's shifted pretty significantly, where they, one, don't have the resources, or 2, they're, you know, they have other priorities. So, but you probably could use a significant more, in my opinion, police presence than what you can afford.
And you're also looking at, you know, you are or were at least a select board member, I don't know if you currently are, but so you understand budget. So it's also, maybe we can't get there tonight, but maybe it's a goal that we put forward and try to get more hours, and maybe eventually, sure, we get to where you think we need to be, but you understand that from a town perspective. We just can't do it all in one shot, but we certainly could work towards it. overtime.
Yeah, and I don't want that to be like a sales pitch. It's just, it's
No.
my opinion of where you probably should be policing wise.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, and maybe this is undermining myself. Do I think that there's going to be a significant change going from 24 to 32 or 36 hours? No. I think if you get into a scenario where you're at like 48 to 56, where you have 8 hours of presence 7 days a week, I think that's going to be much more impactful than another couple shifts a week. But what are you going to do? I mean, health insurance costs are through the roof. You got to increase wages. Like, I'm not 100% sure that we're not going to see another school tax increase like we did this year. So I get it. And, but at the end of the day, I think you're under-policed however you're doing it, whether with us or somebody else.
And I think that's kind of the tricky spot that us as a select board's been in for years, and especially the last couple of years, because now we don't really have the constable resource, so we're like, we got to figure something out, right? And, I know the feedback from the community over the years has been that we don't want a full-time police presence. And that, now maybe that has changed, but that used to be always the number one thing that we would ask at town meeting day, and the feedback was that we did not want that. Didn't mean that we had to stay with a constable, just they didn't want someone full-time. And I know we're, trying to figure out the hours thing now, and I've talked to our neighbors north and south of here, and their budgets are significantly higher than ours for that, and not seeing too much different results, and I think it seems like everybody I talk to points the finger the same direction, which goes north to Montpelier, that, we try hard, but our hands are tied behind our backs, but so.
In that, and you made that point before, and I totally understand what you're saying from that standpoint. You're also dealing with 1 or 2 or 3 person agencies that have very minimal resources to throw at things. So spending that money with us, where I have like 24 cops that are working full-time, another 6 or 7 that are working part-time, a significant increase from this contract and a couple others, we'd bring more people on. I have people, like, we're lucky where we built a culture where people want to come work for us. So I'm able, when scenarios like one of the neighboring agencies has something going on, they might be able to put 3 people on if they call everybody in. I'm able to put 6 or 7 or 10. So yes, but it's not exactly apples to apples. So you're bringing in a larger agency, there's some economy of scale, we have the ability to throw more resources at things. And again, I'm not saying we need 120 out, I'm not expecting that. But that budget with us is going to go a lot farther than it would with a 1 or 2 person agent, 3 person agency. One person gets sick or hurts themselves and they're down, you know what I mean? And so, yes, but it's a difference between hiring maybe a Pike or hiring, a 1 or 2 guy crew that's trying to, what's the scale of things that you can do.
Right.
Do these guys have any
Yeah, so before we get to, and I got you, Gene, first, so before we get to some questions from the audience, does the board members have any questions at this point for Ryan or?
That's Brian.
And again, there's a couple typos in there that might say the wrong name, but I apologize because it kind of hit me before I was coming up with this. Might be something kind of outlines the things that we do, the training, the things we have under our belt, and Bruce wants to make copies for.
Thank you.
You want me?
So Paul, you had something?
Yeah, so Ryan, I think, obviously there's a lot more attention being paid to the drug issues that are going on in town. Speeding's always been there, speeding has always been an issue through downtown and all that stuff, but the happenings with the drug issues in the town, this is new to us, but it's, in a small town, there's a lot of percentage of it seems, it appears. 5 or 6 different places that we know of. So I guess the question is your ability more to inconvenience these folks as opposed to doing an active, I don't want to say intervention, but an active shutting down of these places. Is that within your scope of responsibility or ability, rather? Or is it more just, I guess, inconveniencing, I guess, is the word we've been using?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. And like I said, we have that, I think, capability. We have partners that we can work with. But some things have to start at the ground level to be able to bring those partners in, I guess, without getting too deep into the weeds of how we'd operate a case like that. And we're still trying to build some of those resources at the ground level to where we can really get deeply involved in that. But our entire department's hooked up with the Department of Homeland Security investigations, which is a federal agency that does a lot of these. Taking a gun crime with them federal. We just were working with the ATF on something today. Like I said, we work with the FBI. So talking to two different people from the State Police Narcotics Investigation Unit today about different things. So we have those connections and those capabilities. And I'm working hard on putting some pieces together to do that. Are you ever going to completely shut things down? No, it's a little bit like whack-a-mole, but right now you have a culture in Bethel that's really easy to operate here, and we've inconvenienced that somewhat. A lot, I'd like to do a lot more. It's not always easy to keep people in jail for an extended period of time, but I think we're building some significant cases against those folks, and yes.
So any other board members?
My thought was basically what you just said. From what I've gathered from some people in town, it is like whack-a-mole. They used to be up here on a hillside, now they're over here on a dirt road, sounding like wolves in the middle of the afternoon, or else they're over here now. So it is kind of like whack-a-mole. So they know enough. I don't know, they have scanners of what they're listening to, but they're on the move constantly. So that in itself is hard for you to be able to nail anybody down if they go from up there to over here, and then they're over here, because people are seeing them all over town. Dirt roads, paved roads, parking lot right out here. They're everywhere. They just keep moving. As you infiltrate one area, it's like, let's just go down to the public parking lot down here. Let's go to the Shell station. I mean, they seem to be one step ahead.
So I guess a basic question it sounds like everybody wants is, are you able to run a drug investigation to serving a warrant and clearing out the house for drug purposes?
When I first took over, we hit a house in Sharon with Brattleboro PD and pulled, 16-ish stolen, pulled a bunch of stolen guns out of the place. There's some missing, but yeah, we have that capability depending on what our intel is. We might work with State Police Tactical Services Unit, SWAT team. But yeah, we've got the ability to do that, and we've done it before.
So we have like 7 or 8 more minutes left allotted for this area, so I wanted to get some questions into the audience here, and Gene had his hand up first, so I'll let you go first.
Just a comment that in the most recent report that was included in today's packet, 50% of the activity from the Sheriff's Department was related to either Christian Hill or North Main, 148 North Main. I just think it's important to recognize that half of what they've been doing in the time that they've allotted has been focused on at least 2 of the sites that I'm aware of that seem to be showing up regularly in terms of the police activity. So I want to make that comment. I want to make the additional comment, I want to support what the sheriff said, that increasing the sheriff's allotment right now at the level we've been talking about doesn't seem to me to be cost effective. I don't think the town would receive enough additional benefit to warrant that expenditure. If you had $60,000 that you wanted to spend on the opiate crisis, there may be other ways to address that in the community with a community nurse, some sort of a teaming up with another organization that has a drug treatment program, but to deal with the users, not the business side of it, may be a more effective use of $60,000 as just something to think about. Police are not going to solve this, and we have people that are dying because of their use. And I would suggest that we might want to consider that.
Do we have any other comments or any questions anybody has?
Lori's online. Lori, do you have any questions?
I don't, hi, how are you? I don't actually have questions, but respectfully, if you lived up here in Christian Hill, I'd hate to see us lose our sheriff. I wish he was here more. I have to tell you, when you live across the street from the problem, I really can't imagine not having representation up here. And they know that they're limited on how many times they can come up here. It's, so I don't know what to say. And I'm not sure, actually, after dealing with this for the last 3 years, I don't think giving them help for drugs is the answer, because they're going to keep doing it anyway, right? The people that we're dealing with aren't people that want help.
Yeah, this iteration of the budget that we have in front of us goes from 24 hours a week to 36 hours a week. So the budget goes from 80,000 to 140,400. So it goes from 24 hours to 36. It's not a done deal yet. That's just that's in this iteration of the budget. I had the select board members voted. I polled them. So I had 3 that landed on 36 and 2 that did not. So. But thank you. Just wanted to make sure. I know Zoom isn't your thing, so I just wanted to make sure you got a chance.
Hey, I got it to work. I just knew I'd be late, and I don't want to be late.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate what the sheriffs do. I had them up here the other day, and I'll tell you what, they were here a lot faster than the Vermont State Police got here the last time I had a problem. So I have to tell you, I can't say a bad thing about what's happened with them. So I wish I could, but I can't. So I do appreciate what they do.
Well, thank you, Lori. We appreciate your opinions.
Thank you for asking.
Absolutely.
And just to clarify, I mean, we, as a board, we're not planning on discontinuing any service. Right now, we're just trying to figure out, should we be increasing our level of service? And if so, what would that look like? All right, so that was good. Any other comments? Yep.
So Ryan, this is Joe. I came in a little hot last time. I'm going to try and cool it down a little bit. So one of the things that I think I'm understanding in terms of the current allocation of the budget and the number of hours that have been proposed, it looks like vary essentially anywhere from 32 to 42 hours. If I'm understanding what you're saying, obviously that's a little bit more of the same, but that's not something that's going to make a huge significant impact in terms of the policing in this town. Is that right?
You asking me, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be somewhat proportional, but do I see it as a huge change? Not really. I mean, percentage-wise, it's a fair clip bigger than what we have, 25-30% increase. I don't know, what's the percentage increase on 36?
And then just to kind of back up, and again, we only have a few more minutes left, but, you know, when we started our venture with the sheriff's department, you know, at first was talking about a full-time sheriff, which was 40 hours a week. That was the initial read, was that we were potentially looking to do, and what we ended up doing was kind of cutting that in half and saying, well, let's test it out, let's see how it goes, because it's a big jump from constable and, you know, level of service, and we just kind of wanted to weigh that out. And now we're kind of, I think in some cases, trying to get maybe closer to what we envisioned at the beginning, that service. And I think we could sit here all night and we can go back and forth on different things, because I know where you're coming, Joe. So we can, what I'm saying is we can go back and forth, because we all have different beliefs in this thing. In this case, you know, your lawyer and things like that. And I think at this point, for the most part, the select board has gotten pretty good idea of the direction that we plan on going with this. But I will give you 2 more minutes, even though we're 4 minutes over.
Okay, I just wanted to hear the sheriff's position on the questions I asked.
It's a relatively small increase in the grand scheme of things, and you'll see more service, but it's going to be proportional to the increase, you know, 10 or 12 hours more a week.
That's a 50% increase. From 24 to 36 is 50% more.
Oh, okay, so.
So in proportion, it's quite a bit.
So we'll see a proportional response to the amount of hours that get budgeted and go through. And if everyone's goal is to work towards more policing, we just know we can't get there overnight because we can't afford it, which you understand and appreciate because of the experience they have being on a select board. So you understand we got to get there.
Well, I appreciate it as my experience as a taxpayer in Vermont.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I get it.
Absolutely.
Did you have anything else, Joe?
Not at this point.
All right, well, we thank you for traveling up this evening. At least it wasn't winter wonderland this time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Appreciate that.
All right, so we will move forward. We got one more. Poor Ellie's been sitting there, ready to roll.
Thanks, Ryan.
So Ellie has the opportunity to get her hands on some grant money that will help potentially with some winter
Yes.
activities towards fitness. Does that sound right?
Yeah, she came in with a grant summary today
Yep.
that says the trail maintenance for snowshoe and cross-country ski activity, clinics and races, equipment of snowshoes and cross-country skis. So they're going to be applying for $2,000. There doesn't appear to be a match required. So this is the summary that she dropped off today.
Years ago, the town, the recreation had got snowshoes. We have a small amount of snowshoes, and we have been trying to, promote or use when we did a Valentine event, and Bethel University wanted to do snowshoeing up to the flagpole, but there wasn't enough snow. And recently, that I got word of this winter sports one. We've been doing more programs during the summer. We did Kids and Coffee, skateboard clinic, bike maintenance, and so we're always trying to promote programs and do more for the families and kids, and especially now that we have the trails, we have 3 wonderful trails. So with this grant that's come to my attention, it's worth a try to get, making sure that we can do some snowshoeing activities and some cross-country activities with kids and families, and use our new trails. So that's what I want to work on.
So per the grant policy, it's just that
Yeah.
she needed to come and talk to them.
And I had in my brain wrong, but So they have a total of $8,000 total to give out?
Yeah,
Really? That's it?
yeah,
That's a
Yeah,
lot of money.
It's not.
but, you know, they probably give different people.
Yeah. I read it when I was going through my packet this weekend that it was you could apply up to $8,000. I didn't know that was the whole lot of the money. So-
Yeah.
No,
well,
that's too bad.
Knowing that they like to divvy it up
Yeah.
and stuff.
But I mean, $2,000 will go a little ways towards.
And they might
things
end
too.
up giving them less, who knows? I mean, you know, if they're
Right.
trying to divvy it, it
Right.
depends how they spread it, but
Right.
it's better than nothing and there's no match, so.
So is everybody on the board good with moving forward that grant?
Okay. You don't need a motion.
Thank you, Ally.
Okay.
It's cold enough now. Now we just need a little more snow.
Well, maybe. Pretty warm today.
The ice rink, we're trying to figure out
47.
about setting up the right ice rink.
Exactly.
What?
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is perfect for us.
Yeah.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is?
0.
Yeah.
Minus would get cold.
-2.
Dave said he'd go out and help you fill it.
You did?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, perfect. All right, so any public comments, so anything that's not on the agenda, anybody wants to bring up, like Lori's the only one online, nothing online, so
Hi.
go for it.
Hi, I'm Owen. I just wanted to let folks know that the group that did the neighborhood conversations is continuing to meet, and I'm really hopeful that that the conversation can be like enriched, so that it's not we're either contracting with more police or we're doing nothing, but there are more options than just those two. So that some of the ideas that were generated from that time, you know, some of them had to do with policing or more effective or like specific hours, those types of changes, and sounds like Ryan is amenable to doing what he can to come when we know that he's needed the most. But there were all these other great ideas that community members had for preventative work, stuff with young people, stuff around substance abuse prevention, treatment. And I just want to make sure that you all know that this group of people is still like really excited to continue that work. And so if there's any way that we can be a resource to you all or whatever, we're here to do that. And I think I personally feel excited to really think about some of kind of what you were saying, Dean, of like investing in our community members and understanding. I definitely hear what Lori was saying, that if someone is not ready to be helped, it's going to be really hard to help that person. But I think there are a lot of people that are ready to be helped too. And so I don't want to just blanket say that anybody who's currently addicted to substances in our community is not ready to be helped. I don't think that's true. And I think there's some things we can do to make sure there are more resources available, recovery programs, overdose prevention support, all that kind of stuff. And so there's a group that's excited to help with that.
Okay, thanks, Owen.
Thanks, Owen.
All right, any other public comment? Yes.
Owen, what are your thoughts on funding those kind of things?
Yes, yes. Well, the major thought is that there's actually a lot of substance abuse prevention funding out there. There's federal grants, there's state grants. There's some questions of whether or not that would attach to a municipality, or if we need to be thinking about a host nonprofit organization that could hold some of those funds. But there's actually a lot of money out there. And part of what we talked about was who are the people, kind of like strengths-based, who are the people in this group that know how to write grants, are excited about that. I personally am excited about grants deeply. I love writing them and have a background in that. So I think there's money out there. There may also be some resources internally. If we did a call to our neighbors and say, hey, who can donate $100 or $50 or $20 or $1,000, $5,000 to help, you know, who's out there? I think there are resources in our community. We just haven't made the ask, the specific ask.
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
There's also state, you know, stuff that I'd given you
Yeah.
last time. I mean, there's a lot of state resources that are out there that would be interesting for people to pursue, that somebody who's already, you know, cracked the nut and figured it out. There is a lot of state resources that the way that they're advertising possibly aren't being taken advantage of, so maybe
Yes.
they just need to be advertised locally more
Yes.
too, so,
Yeah.
which would be great. I hate reinventing the wheel, don't you?
Yes.
But
I
yeah,
love writing grants.
How are you going to make this work? Are you going to approach these people or hope they approach you? You say
Who's
this is
these
available,
people? The
you hope they
funders?
come to you?
Funders?
No, the ones
No,
that need the
people-
help.
The people who need help.
Oh, well, there's a lot of different ways to do that. I think one that we've talked about is you create programming like recreational programs, youth programs, after-school programs. Anything that engages young people in healthy decision-making and healthy activities is substance abuse prevention. And a lot of the substance abuse prevention grants out there are for doing things that don't explicitly look like drug-related activities or like drug prevention, because any positive youth development is steering people in a different direction. So there's that. I think also just making sure that people know, are there meetings happening? There are some new like recovery meetings happening in town, AA meetings, stuff like that. But maybe we need to see some more meetings for folks that are specifically, NA type of thing, Narcotics Anonymous, that type of stuff. At the bar, we are now, we have been for almost a year, we've been giving out free Narcan. It's a partnership with the Vermont Department of Public Health, which is overdose prevention drug, that we now have a box there. It looks like an old, what's it called, like a newspaper box that folds down, that's loaded with Narcan and information about substance abuse prevention. And so stuff like that can be an intervention. It also directs people on where they can get help if they're seeking help. So I think there's a lot of different ways it can look, not just one. And the exciting thing about the groups that we've been a part of, and you too, is that there's people that are coming to those groups with different backgrounds and different ideas. So it's not just like, here's the one solution. It's like, here's a bunch of different solutions. And, having more effective policing is one of them. And so I just want you to know that it's not this or nothing. It's this, and there's a lot of other cool ideas happening. And Lori's been a part of that too. So.
Well, I wish this program well, because I will tell you, in my interaction, I've been driven off road twice. Those are not kids. I've had people that actually watched the drug change hands. That was not a kid. All my interactions had nothing to do with the people that you're going to help, which means that hopefully, if that does work, it's a generation away. Well, I'm not going to be here for that next generation. So I need to take care of me now.
Yeah.
And the way I take care of me now is to have somebody out there who is able to approach the person who may or may not have an illegal gun. I'm not going to go up to any of those folks. I mean, I had one time when I wanted to punch somebody, I smartly said, Jordan.
He called Jordan.
Come with me.
Jordan, go do it.
Because
Which he did.
I was going to walk up to this car, and with there are 2 or 3 people, I have no idea what condition they're in or what they have in the car. And so those are the people that need to have, I'm not sure that, I'm pretty sure at least 2 of them don't want help because they're making money. And one of them, I'm not sure if they want help either. And
Some people that are dealers are also.
so my point being is, I applaud the idea of helping folks steer to a different direction, but we can't do just that.
Right, and that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm actually saying
We
we're in agreement.
need to protect the rest of us too.
We're in agreement, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say too, I was aware of someone with an issue in town. I talked to the sheriff, and he actually went person to person, veteran to veteran, and went to that person and said, hey, I'm a vet. If you need help, I will get you to the VA. Here's some programs available. So, Ryan has that ability too, and Ryan served his country. He was in Afghanistan or Iraq, I can't remember which, and I apologize, I don't know the answer, but he went to someone that I had said, look, before we go down the policing lane, what about just, and he did, and talked to him and gave him a vet chip and said, hey, I'm a vet too, and talked about it, and if you need something, here's my number, call me. And so it's important too to know that he does have that side too, that he's also willing to be that person, to be compassionate and go and say, hey, look, before somebody ends up in cuffs, what can we do here?
Totally.
And so that was really great.
Yes, and also there's a lot of veterans in our community, so we don't
absolutely.
necessarily need to be paying someone to do that. That's
Yeah.
the beauty of what I think people are thinking about is like, you know, I think that type of peer-to-peer conversation is really successful in a lot of prevention work. It's something that happens in like sexual abuse with survivors talking to each other, domestic violence, drug, substance use, PTSD, all these things, and I don't think Ryan is the only person that can do that. I think
No, absolutely not. I just
we
want
might
you
need
to
some training and support and to be in community with each other. So
I just want you to know he has that side too, and that he was, you know, I talked to him specifically about someone, and so that was his tact, and I was appreciative that he was willing to come out of the gate that way and say, hey, look, before this goes any further, this is who I am, this is who you are, we served in the same ward, what can we talk about that? So I was really happy, because not every police officer is willing to do that, so it was nice to see.
All right.
Julie's back.
Yes, Julie.
For Therese and all of you, but also Owen, I spoke with a woman named Mary out of Woodstock who is involved with a new organization I believe is called Hope. And it is a community organization, no drain on the budgets. And they started this up from nothing, and I put her in contact with Rebecca Stone.
Yep.
And given her that number so that maybe she can, because both Mary and myself and Rebecca thought that kind of thing, which speaks right to what Owen is talking about, is what Bethel could really use. It would be really helpful in addition to Sheriff Ryan.
Well, thank you for making that contact. That's really helpful. So.
I don't know what she's done with it, but I'm going to follow up with it.
Well, thank you. That's great.
So if you have any information, ask her.
There you go.
All right, so we'll close public session or public comment.
We will have an opportunity to join in the conversation about the recommendation from the youth group.
Human Services.
And the budget, right?
No, we're doing that next.
Yeah.
We'll be able to, I don't have to use community or, okay.
Yeah.
You can have those, Gene.
Yeah.
You were here.
It's next. So.
Now, on any other board, yes, you're right. You'd have to do it now, but we're usually pretty good about throwing in comments as we go, so.
So after last week's meeting, I doubled back and made some changes. So I did not make any changes to revenues. I left that alone. Seemed like we kind of narrowed that down. I had gone back and looked at the fourth person and took Chris's recommendation. Instead of budgeting for a family plan, I kind of split the difference. So you can see in my notes that if I took the $90,205 is about what I'm budgeting now, minus what was budgeted last year, it's really up $21,407 over last year. So I had gone back and made that change. I think Chris had also had the guardrail, which I have dropped to $8,000. And then we had talked, I had cut the fire department back so that we went level funded their safety and equipment fund, but I'm leaving the $6,000 in there for the AFG. So, but if we don't get the grant and use that as a match, then we'll just transfer that into their safety and equipment fund. So I back that amount out. Law enforcement, you can see on page 4. I kind of did a poll, so I've got Jordan at 38 hours, Denise, Dave, and Paul end up at 36, Chris is at 32, so I just took the majority and built 36 into this budget. We added the pool back in. That was something that Chris had also suggested, so we added the pool back in, and again, the deal is going to be if we don't have a pool director, we won't open it, but that money would just it'd be used to offset my loss at Warva, but it would also be used to go towards undesignated fund balance. So We also had dialed back, let's see, I dropped the, something in the budget, we talked about, contract labor from 10,000 to 8,000. So I had gone back and reassessed and made some changes. Paul had gave me his numbers for the Human Services Board. I went back and did that. Talked to Bennett from the Playhouse Theater. He did agree that if we put him in the budget, he'd take 1,000. So we have been lucky. We've got, from the original asks, the original budget, got $10,000 back. The Historical Society agreed they would not request the $5,000 for the memorial. The food shelf took $3,000 less. And then Bennett agreed to take $2,000 less for the Playhouse if we put him in the budget and he didn't have to petition. So we have kind of clawed back, $10,000. So my overall budget comes out with the expenditures are up 4.94% over last year, using that number of the police. And the budget overall is at 5.74% because I did leave Warva in at the amount that obviously that we know of, and then I took their 3-year average of 10.2%. So, that could be high, but that's just where I landed. So those are the changes that we made after everybody's comments last week. So.
And then just so people can understand what the movers in the budget were. So currently, this most up-to-date draft budget shows a 6.5 cent increase.
Yes.
So now typically on an average year, we are trying, our goal, like when Jean was here, our goal was always to try to be 3 cents or less. Last year, the towns ended up being 10 cents after everything was voted in. So some of the movers, I was going through everything. So 3.5 cents worth of increases in the budget were just services that we typically have that have increased. So like Warva was a big increase. Benefits for employees was an increase like normal. So 3.5 cents were increases in services that we currently have. And then 4.5 cent increase were what we're saying would be extended services. So that would be.
But that's at 3.5 cents.
Right.
No, 4. Oh, sorry.
Lady,
I'm like doing the math going, what is he talking about?
Well, there's obviously things that we took out.
Okay.
So
what's the 4.5?
So the 4.5 cents would be some of these services that we have talked about increasing. So the extra money for the sheriff's department, having the 4th full-time person to do road maintenance in the winter and summer. So, comes with an increase. So we had, so basically if you take those, there was 8 cent increase, and then there was 1.5 cents worth of things that we have reduced in our budget, which primarily comes into the future fund end of things, like capital fund, road highway rehabilitation fund that we reduced this year.
Reappraisal fund.
Yes, to try to get dwindle ourselves down as much as we can. So so that's kind of where we are at. And I would say on a typical year, other than the last couple of years, because it's been crazy with the cost, have been out of control. But on a typical year, we see, a 1 or 1.5 cent increase in just, benefits and things like that. And Gene's well aware of that. That always seems to go up. Everybody's healthcare goes up, and the cost of whatever, fuel or whatever. So that doesn't seem like it's too much higher this year, but a majority of what is moving the budget right now is some of the added services that we've heard from the community that they wanted. Now, with the sheriff's department, we didn't get to the full amount that some people wanted to get to. We're kind of maybe a little higher than middle of the road on that end of things. And then the other thing that we heard a lot about over the last year and a half is just, roads, grading, and it's very difficult to do things with a 3-person crew, because what happens is a majority of the time is the 3-person crew turns into a 2-person crew because someone's on vacation, somebody's sick, there's all those pieces and components. Or, like what we've seen is, just as we get one, we lose one. So you're always kind of at the same number. So now, again, you know, we have to budget for, in some cases, we have to budget, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but we have to budget, you know, conservatively when it comes to not knowing who we're going to be getting for help, because you don't know if they're going to have a single plan or family plan, or, you know, those types of things, which can be, you know, the difference between $10,000 and $50,000 worth of cost. So those would be things, just like the pool, like we are budgeting for the pool. And
Is that just because you're sticking it back in just as a temporary thing, or you're just?
No, we just, at the last meeting, well, you were there via Zoom,
Yeah.
but no, at the last meeting, it was one of the things we talked about was the only way, what my original take on it was I had to cut a service in order to get this budget down, and the service, the only service I could cut was the pool. And then after, you know, we met, the select board met, we talked about it, and it was like, let's just put the pool back in and see what the numbers look like. Then we got the human service advisory numbers, and we got more actual numbers. We made some other cuts.
So if we don't get a pool director, we still would be saving money there?
Right.
Yes.
And that's the thing is, again, for anybody that hasn't been in the conversation, is not that we want to cut the pool. Like,
No.
that is not, that's not the thing, but the challenge we have right now is we can't go without a pool director for multiple reasons. Some of it is for helping to schedule the pool activities. A large piece of it really is liability at the pool. So, and we're trying hard, but we have not had any takers. So if, it's kind of the thing, you know, that we really need to hit home on, and maybe town meeting day might be too late, is if we do want the pool open this year, we need to find somebody ASAP, because they have to get on board, get whatever type of certifications that they're lacking, which might take some time. And I think if we wait until March, then, you know, that doesn't give you enough time to get somebody in here.
Yeah, unless they're already trained. So that was the issue. So we did add the pool stuff back in. So that's back in this budget at this number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is there a possibility, if we don't have the pool, that we could add the 10,000 back to the improvement fund?
No, once the budget is voted, the budget is voted. So no, we wouldn't be able to make that change. No. Right now, this iteration of the budget in front of me has the pool, but no money to the recreation.
So what usually happens
fund.
on that, Ellie, is any funds that aren't spent, so for whatever reason, so in this case, if we didn't open the pool and there was 50,000
Right.
allotted to the pool opening, that money would stay in the undesignated fund balance.
Oh, okay.
And in the undesignated fund balance, from time to time, depending on what that balance is, you know, if it gets higher than what we would like to see it, because we have to have a balance there so that we can pay our bills and not have to take credit out, you know, all the time. But if it, you know, if someday it magically got to a point where we had a surplus, a nice surplus, then you can always do things like, what would you like to appropriate that money to? You know, we could bring it back to paying down taxes for one time, or we could vote to put it into different funds, so.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, we're not picking on the recreation department at all. But, you know, in this newest draft that we've done, we've actually even the funds, we've taken money out of almost all the funds this year from what we normally have them at, just to try to tweak our budget.
All funds from what?
All our normal funds, so like capital improvement funds, the only one the equipment fund, we left the same or slightly higher.
Yeah.
But we took out of the roads fund, we took it out of the capital improvement fund, we took some out of the reappraisal fund, just to try to get ourselves into what manageable, hopefully, for everybody. And
The fire department asked for an increase in their capital fund. We said no, because they're writing an AFG grant. So we said, I can't give you both, Gary. I can give you one or the other. So what we decided was we kept them level funded at their appropriation, and then we added, I put the AFG grant match in the budget, but if we don't get that, that'll go into their capital fund, but we'll vote it that way. But yeah, it's like I said to you in my office the other day, it's not personal, but just because people live on, people live on such fixed incomes. We have such a high percentage in the community.
I'm strongly into recreation.
Well, I get that, and we all support it, and the town's folks have supported recreation for years. We're just asking this year for everybody to kind of, I mean, I even went to the food shelf and asked them for $3,000 back. I mean, just because we need to make it, and also too, don't forget, as I stated, that in July, we will we'll know before then what our grand list is. We know we're just finishing the townwide reappraisal, so that's gonna rise. But we're just trying to figure out how to be good stewards of that, and we really won't know what that number looks like until after town meeting, because they don't lodge the grand list until the middle of April. So, it's a balance, it's a delicate balance. Excuse me? I still have hair.
Some.
Yeah, it's turning white, but yes. It's turning white, but yeah, that's it.
So one thing that we don't have to 100% make it tonight, but it would be nice if we move forward on what pieces do we want to separate out as articles, if any.
Yeah, because I need to
just so that we
draft
can
the warning.
start getting some draft warnings together.
I'd also like to know if there's any changes to the budget. I know, Chris, that you had mentioned the shooting range, but I just.
I was just throwing everything against the wall.
I know, and I appreciate that. I just, I think that we would need to, I think we should take the next year to think about that before we just go and pull that plug, because yes, we could funnel people to Randolph, to the Fish and Game Club, but is it going to be that more people are shooting in their backyard? I just feel like I need a little more time to scope that out.
Sounds like it in my backyard.
Well, it's just,
Yeah.
and I guess
I
the
can
only.
hear it.
I know you can, but it's also who's gonna, it's gonna be a big thing, and it's gonna be.
I know, I'm just,
It's gonna be people are.
my family likes to use
Look at me
things
ugly.
recreational as
I
well.
know.
But, we went from, hey, we got to have insurance,
know.
which was, I don't know, $800 a year to now, hey, it's almost $4,000 a year, it's going up, so. And maybe we do need to talk, long-term what that looks like.
Yeah.
Do we keep it here, and if so, what's that gonna cost us? Or,
Yeah.
$4,000 would probably almost pay for just everybody to have a membership up in Randolph,
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
I agree. I'm
It'd
just
be nice to
thinking.
hear from some of the people that use it.
Exactly, yeah, and I don't want to do that like overnight.
And from time to
because
time, we
people are
have had
livid. I'd rather
challenges
have a
with
conversation about
somebody,
it. Oh, yeah.
managing it, and, so I've just thrown
And
it
we
up there
still
when
do,
we were,
and
Yeah.
I
because we
did
were
have
taking
to.
money from everything, so
No,
we're just
I know.
throwing it out there.
I'm just saying that was my, I'd rather have public discussions about it than just cut it out of the budget. And, we could still do that over the course of the winter and into the spring, is have a conversation about it. Just because it's in there doesn't, even if it goes that way towards the town meeting, at least we could have a conversation about it. I just don't want pitchforks and torches,
And then, one piece that we are continuing to carry into our budget, because it seems to flood once a year, is we still have ERAF.
Yeah.
So anytime we have a flood event and FEMA comes and helps us out, which is great, we still have to pay 12.5% of whatever that balance is. So, so we, right now, we're paying back about 120 some odd $1,000 just from our flood from a year
2020,
and a half ago. So, not to mention, we
December.
did have some stuff that got flooded out last December that
Yeah.
didn't meet that we
No,
paid.
we still have,
Paid ourselves, and
but we still have Sugar Hill.
yeah,
from
so
that.
it seems like that was one thing that we never had in the budget, up until, I don't know, Gene got on the board.
Yeah.
In the last maybe 5 years, we've had to have an ERAF in there for, the floods, to pay whatever, $40,000 or $50,000 each
Wow.
year to pay down that, because usually you got to pay them off within 2 to 3 years, right, or something like that.
Well, it doesn't say, but
2 to
for
3
us,
years.
we'd rather. And this is over 2 years, because we currently, in my estimation, have 110,663 in ERAF. Also, I haven't seen the bids yet on Pinello Bridge, which is out to bid, nor have I seen we haven't bid out yet Sugar Hill, but I was estimating $1 million for Sugar Hill, and if it comes in less than that, great, but if Pinello goes over, it's all best case scenario.
I have some new questions. under materials, we have the tools at $6,500. Now, I remember when Alan first came in, there was no tools at the shop. So we allotted 5,500 and maybe 6,500, and
Yep.
do they still need more tools?
Yeah, some of this, yep, I mean, some of the stuff is as the equipment changes that they have, it's making sure that they have what they need. It's this year, like one year they split a compactor with the water department. This year, they're looking at splitting something else with Richard, a piece of equipment that, so sometimes that's what they're using it for, like when they bought the plate compactor, they paid for a portion, Richard paid for a portion out of the water sewer budget, and they're, what is it they're buying? Oh, I think that they're looking to buy a camera for the culverts and for the water sewer system, so that when they have something plugged or figure out where it's cracked before they dig it, they get a better idea of how far they're going. So that's something that they're trying to do, is split the cost between the two of them. So I can't give you the whole explanation, but obviously they spent $5,000 last year, and I know that was one thing in particular that they were looking for.
Okay, now, let's see. The other question was on, under the fire department, telephone, internet.
Yep.
Have they shopped around more than Comcast or Consolidated?
Well, we currently are working with someone to do that. We're trying to, he's working with, I think, EC Fiber.
I was going to say.
To see about taking, that's where we're on EC Fiber at the town office, and just seeing, because it's ridiculous, the cost. And they have to have multiple lines because they have to have that certain emergency phone. They've got Johnson Controls, then they have internet, so they do have a little bit more need. But yes, we have been working with someone who.
I would beat them up.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
As far as being responders.
Yeah.
Because I know they treated the school extremely well when they signed up.
Okay. Yeah, so we are actually working with someone to look at all services in town, all of us.
One more, where is it?
Just
Human service.
It's not AT&T.
Where?
You can sign it if you want to get service.
It's here somewhere. South Senior Center isn't on your list.
That's
correct.
So does that mean they were putting the whole 10,000 or up, possibly up?
It's on page
its own?
9,
Yeah, I
under
found
Human
it.
Services, South Royalton Senior Center,
No, he said
10,000.
it's not on my list.
And
Not on.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
part of it was.
I'm sorry, I thought you said you
Last
weren't.
year,
Part of it
On the
was.
list.
it was, and 6 of it was
So my
additional.
question is, does that mean that is another one we're considering to go on to its own?
In my
Yes.
brain, I'm assuming that you're gonna put South Royalton Senior Center, Tri-Valley Transit, Warva, which is always the case, Food Shelf, and the library as all separate articles. But
All right.
that's my guess, but you gotta
Answer
tell
my
me,
question. Thank you.
so I can draft the warrant. What do you think, Dave?
That's exactly what I think.
Okay, good.
I
Perfect.
want to make sure.
And that's definitely something that we probably should
I need to know.
semi-formalize tonight
Yes.
on what we want to, if there are anything that we are going to add to the agenda, not put in the budget, then
Yeah,
we should do that.
then I need to know they're on the warning. Okay, so I'm gonna make it. Okay. Does anybody disagree with Dave? Does everybody want South Royalton Senior Center, not you, you're not on the select board anymore. Does the rest of the select board want South Royalton Senior Center, Tri-Valley Transit, Bethel Food Shelf, Bethel Library, and Warva to be on their own, or is there something you want to include in the budget? I just need to draft the warrant.
Pardon me?
No, I think it's a good setup. Doing it that way,
Have it separate?
yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Jordan?
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, no, I think we have to go that way with just the sheer amount of money.
I think,
each
though, that
one's
we
looking
also,
for.
though, need to make sure that folks that are looking at the warning and looking, be able to describe the impact of those additional items. in
Went over that today.
in a dollar figure that I can look at how much my house is worth and what does a penny mean.
So basically, next to the warning, we want to say that if this passes, this is X amount of dollars, it'd be X amount of dollars per thousand.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
But we got our budget here, and that's how much our increase is, so much per thousand. The add-ons are so much per thousand.
Which is, good night, Ellie, which is what we did.
I think we did last year. I think we had something similar to that last year.
And we did a nice job last year.
Yeah.
I read it to Dave today in the budget summary that Chris usually goes over at town meeting. We talked, it was specifically said, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen. So,
But is Paul's question more that you'd like to see that on the warning?
yeah.
Well, I'd like to see it somewhere.
Or just on the informational
so-
page that we normally have?
Well, it can't be, it's probably not part of the warning, it's probably
Okay.
not part of that document.
Yeah.
But somewhere in that financial section,
Yeah.
a description of the difference in the,
Because the budget summary
Numbers.
last year, if you pull your town report from last year, look at that.
Yeah.
And see, that's what we
Yeah.
assumed we would do again, but take a peek at it, Paul, and see if that's what.
yeah, we had something similar
We
last
did,
year.
it was spelled
But-
right out, yeah. We can do the
But no,
same.
not part, it's not part of the warning
don't
document.
want it on the warning,
No,
okay,
it's not
good.
part of the warning
Okay.
document.
Excellent, we'll do it. So is there any changes to the budget tonight? Or are we moving forward as is? Is there, you want to talk more about constable hours? I don't know.
I know
I've
where
gotten it this way.
I'm at, and that's what I'm going to vote. I don't need any more answers.
So, no, I mean, so constable number, I guess. And then
I mean, I think at this point, it would be
All right, sheriff's number, sorry, not constable, thank you.
I think at this point, if we put out this, make this a little, well, I mean, it's always public, but make this draft budget as it stands after tonight more public, or
More public. or-
more advertised, just so that people can start to think about, this is what it's shaping up to look like, so that if individuals do have some questions about either the overall cost of the budget or a piece of it, then over the next couple of meetings, they can come and, have a more informed concern.
And if
of
we do
what
And
it
we'll
is that
still
they-
If we do that, I would like those information pieces about each add-on, what it does to my taxes in that. So it's
Well,
written.
and remember too, you'll still, when we talk about the budget and the warning, and everything from now till you sign it, in January, but we also have 2 formal budget informationals, so those are also, I mean, it's a process.
But you know how it is, like, once we
Oh,
get to
yeah.
the budget informationals, it's pretty much print.
It's a done deal.
You know what I
yeah.
mean? So it'd be nice that over the next,
We do have one person in town, like Lucian, who will actually read it all.
I know, God bless
I
him.
want to say 2 meetings, is it 2 meetings before it would go?
We don't have
Usually
any more in
mid-January,
December.
right?
We'll have one more in January, and usually, depending when the
If I won't
second
cover
one
the
is,
second one, we'll-
no, because.
So we'll have one
Sign the
more.
warning, well, let me see, I can tell you, I gotta look at the dates.
So
in
we'll have
January.
one more, but at least that'll give people the opportunity to look at.
Look at January. You're going to meet on the 13th and the 27th, so
So,
worst
yeah.
case scenario,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll probably finalize on the 13th and maybe sign the warning on the 27th, or you may sign the warning on the 13th, because I have to look
You'll have to
at,
do it on the 27th, I think.
well, I have to look at the calendar
Oh,
to
so-
see what
yeah.
the state law says when we can are out. So, but usually we sign around the end of January.
6 Mondays before or something, isn't it?
Something like that. But I have the calendar taped up on my office wall, but, so worst case scenario, we sign it then, but Gene has it.
Yes, Gene?
Something I think, I talked to Paul about this several months ago, but it seems to me that there may be some things that are being held back for a special or individual vote, i.e. the food shelf.
Oh, yeah, more of the food shelf, yeah.
As a separate warrant item.
Yep.
And we've had the food shelf, I think, for 2 years now, that the community, the town has said, yes, we want to do that. I'm wondering whether or not, and this is a philosophical kind of perspective, but it seems to me that that kind of a public service is a legitimate expense of the town budget on a permanent basis, and not something that doesn't mean we don't consider the amount each year, but I'm suggesting philosophically that as a service provided by the town to the citizens, addressing food issues is a significant enough social issue that I would suggest or want us to think about moving that from a special vote into the budget. Similarly, we have extended conversations on a regular basis about the ambulance service. Why is that a separate item rather than part of emergency services? Those are two items that it seems to me both of those are more than $10,000. And we've had indication from the town that those are things we want to support. So I'm suggesting that maybe at some point there is a consideration of whether or not those are ongoing, regular commitments of the town to provide services that we know we're going to provide, and that those, in my opinion, legitimately belong in the town budget rather than as add-ons. There are all kinds of reasons not to do that or to do that, but it's a philosophical thing about, I think that's something that's appropriate for the town to say that's an ongoing responsibility that we need to think about.
I just want to think about.
In this year, it would not mean an increase in taxes because those have been, well, depending on what you decide with the ambulance service, but it wouldn't be an increase in taxes for the food shelf because we've been paying for that for 2 years.
Right.
So it's not a tax increase issue. It's simply where does it show up on the ledger?
Yeah. Well, I think too, I don't think of the fact that being a separate article isn't punishment. Sometimes it's good to talk about that thing. Like Warva does a lot of great stuff. So when they're their own article, they get to promote themselves and talk about it. The same thing with the food shelf. When they stand up, they talk about what they have for services, how much eligible. The library, Lisa or Bennett gets to stand up and say, hey, we have all these services. So just because they're a separate article doesn't mean it's a punishment. It's the opportunity for people to talk about, because you know from being on the select board for 3 years that when you group them all together as human services, it's just a pass. They don't talk about it. And if someone hasn't read town report, they don't necessarily see all those things. I mean, it's just, I'm not saying you're right or wrong, and neither am I. I'm just saying, I don't think of it always as a punishment. I think some people do, but I don't.
I think you have to also, it depends on where you put it in the budget too.
Yeah.
So, and I'll give you some examples. So, I think the positives about them being standalone, right? So like Warburg, for instance, make it up if the cost, the perception of cost gets to a point where taxpayers are concerned, it gives them an opportunity to voice that concern, right? Don't want to say we're voting anything down, right, Frank? Because we don't know where we're going if that happens. But it gives them an opportunity from the floor to have a serious discussion about that before we vote on it. The nice thing about the human services piece is if they're by themselves, right? So like, let's say the library, for instance. So the library, if it's its own item, right, the benefits to that is somebody could amend that item, right, by itself. So I'm just going to make it up. Let's say somebody decided that they think that the library should be $50,000 a year instead of $35,000. That item could be amended, and it can be voted on through that amendment. However, if the library was in our budget and somebody said, I want to add more money to the library, and I want to increase the whole budget by $15,000, it doesn't necessarily go to the library. That $15,000, it's an addition to the budget that then the select board manages that, and with the town manager. And you could put that to the library, you could put something else. Because we've had that years ago where, remember the year that there was lots of confusion at the meeting with the add-ons, and people thought, there were certain add-ons that people didn't like, and they thought by voting the budget down, they amended the budget like $50,000 down because they thought that they were going to take these additions off.
right.
And then the additions came through and they all got voted in, but the budget got voted down 50 grand. So then the select board had to go in and figure out where the 50 grand comes from, right? So, you know, we took a little from this and a little from that. So I think that the nice thing is from the floor is, you know, for instance, you know, the food shelf can stand up and talk about the importance of, you know, providing that service in the community and how many people they do, and it gives taxpayers the opportunity to increase or decrease that amount based upon what they feel is necessary. And if it was in our budget, then it wouldn't necessarily have that control on it, you know what I mean? If that makes sense.
I appreciate that. It's a philosophical argument or debate over what's an appropriate, legitimate budget expense
Exactly, yeah.
for the town. And in my opinion, things like food security is something, and emergency services, to me, those are legitimate services that the town needs to commit to doing every year. And that way that happens is that it's in the town budget. Now, I understand, I'm just stating a philosophical
Right.
kind of perception.
Exactly.
Another issue that I heard is I noticed that the theater was not in the list that was in the packet,
Right, but it's in the budget.
but it's in the budget.
Yeah.
Yep, made a deal with Bennett because I was trying to,
Okay, I'm just, so where in the budget?
under local, it's under appropriations.
So it's still under appropriations.
Yeah.
So that appropriations section
He's in there, page,
includes
it includes,
your recommendations.
yep, and it includes the Playhouse, what was not on their list, but
Okay.
Bennett had,
Well, I
yeah.
didn't see it.
Yeah, no, it's on
Your
there.
list. And I just wanted to argue again, it seems to me that arts and entertainment and so on is a legit
It's in there.
community municipal expense, and so if it's there, I'm fine.
It's in there because we made a deal with him, that if he didn't have to petition again, he'd give us back $2,000. And so, this is the way, so I've clawed back 10,000, and 2 of it was from Bennett. So he agreed, so I said, look, if we don't make you petition, will you go take $1,000? And he said yes. I'm like, thank you. So,
And I think,
it's like wheeling and dealing, I'm telling you.
and as you know, Gene, like, we've always tried to keep our warning as short as we can, you know, because, I mean, you could go to some of those places, you know, you can go up to Barry or something, you'll see their warning is 2.5 pages long of this one and that one, and, you know, to vote on, so, which can be, you know, granted, we do things from the floor, so it takes longer, the more items, so, but it, you know, it's definitely good feedback, and I think some of it too is just, as you know, the last 2 years, we've seen significant increases in certain services, to the point that, what is it, Dave had it, but just those four items. Yeah, just those 4 items now are 50, 60, 70, almost $80,000 for those 4 items when the whole human services was 24,000 before, you know, so it's.
And I understand and appreciate that. I'm just
I think
expressing an opinion.
Exactly. Is there anything else for this?
One of the books I read last year with history of Bethel said that statewide communities were responsible, town budgets were responsible for feeding I don't remember how it was worded, feeding people so they didn't starve to death.
Wow, it's tough. But, so is there anything that anybody wants changed in the budget? Or do you feel like at this, as of today, we're moving forward with the budget presented? Or is there something that you want to talk about that you want changed? Jordan, I know we didn't end up where you want to end up at the policing, and I'm happy to have that conversation with you. I just,
I mean, I think,
Okay.
I mean, there's probably some small things that we can move this way or that way, but I
I was
think,
wondering, the Orange County Parent-Child Center for 1,500, what does that entail?
Which
Do you
one?
know? Orange County?
County.
What is the service to Bethel?
Bethel is close enough to Orange County that we get a lot of services. We don't get it from Windsor County.
What service?
One of the things I know of, and the woman was here earlier this year, and she gave us the whole big
She's talking about opening the new
spiel.
one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that one of the things they get at the food shelf is diapers. And anybody that has kids knows how expensive diapers are. So they donate those diapers. The food shelf doesn't have to pay for them. And we have several people that have young children that, diapers apparently are incredibly expensive, and they said if I had to go out and buy these. So, I mean, that's just one little minuscule thing. I'm sure Paul can definitely add on to that, but,
Well, the goal of that organization is similar to what Denise was talking about. It's concentrating on child development, child care programs, those types of things.
And they serve
deal
Bethel
with,
kids.
what's that?
They do serve Bethel.
yes,
Yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah.
do they,
because we're,
See,
but they charge, right? I mean,
that?
they're charging the residents of Bethel for those services.
not necessarily.
No, they're providing the services.
That's what-
Yeah, no, they're
Yeah.
providing the services.
Okay.
And I
Because
can
of our
give you,
location.
I can give you the literature that came with their request for appropriation. We asked them to
Yeah, I was
really
just
lay out
wondering
exactly
it
what
was
they do.
for specifically.
Yeah, and how many Bethel residents specifically they dealt with, and I can give you all that. I can give you that documentation.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I was wondering.
Yeah,
That's, do they do Head Start?
no.
Like preschool? I wasn't sure.
But I think right now, and granted, there's probably some things that we could, look through there and ask if we want to stretch it anymore. But it may give just a good time just to put this updated.
I did some looking today again, and I wanted to add.
See, that's it.
But at least it gives us a pretty decent draft budget now that we've kind of dwindled it down.
think
And
so.
we could really advertise this, and that way individuals can start thinking about, based on this level of service, this is what we're looking like for increase. And then gives them 2 weeks, 3 weeks
Yep.
before our next meeting.
And keep in mind.
4 weeks, yeah, 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
So it gives ample time for individuals to come to the next meeting to voice concerns on those, increases in services and make a final push for
And keep in
changes.
mind that if someone is passing a petition that we're not aware of or don't know about, and that's something additional, then that's, that's coming too. And we didn't know last year about
Playhouse
the
and.
Playhouse until it came. And this, and I've heard rumor there may be another petition out there for possibly 10 grand. And so.
But, I mean, unless if we want to go through anything more,
Yeah.
just advertise it the way it is right now, and then that gives everybody almost a month.
Okay.
No, we're good.
That's what we'll
I'm
do.
good.
So you will definitely be finalizing the budget at the next meeting. And depending on the warning, we may have to look at that schedule to see. You may be signing the warning, or you may be making a motion to sign once I amend it, and then you'll have to come in the office and sign. So we'll take a peek at the state schedule.
And just while it's kind of related to the budget, as it would be nice for us, I know last year, for whatever reason, it wasn't picked on the recreational committee, but just happened to be, those were the questions. But, have the select board members just come up with some potential questions that we can ask citizens this year on, maybe one might be, how much money should we devote towards human services a year, so that we can start really figuring that out, you know? So
Because
that
you want to do
call
a
is-
survey in town meeting?
Well, just, yeah, like
Okay.
our normal survey.
Yeah.
And whatever else those other questions might be. One might be something to do with the level of service for law enforcement, or, you know, like we've done before. So maybe over the next 3-4 weeks, we can each come to the table, a couple of those, and I think we usually try to keep it to like 4 or 5 questions at the
Yeah.
most.
Yeah, because we'll have to
Because
draft
it works
it.
out pretty well. So, so if we could do that.
Okay.
And then the last little piece here, so there was some legislation that had changed.
Yep.
Well, legislation that will go into effect January 1st.
Some of it has. Some of it already went into effect.
Where the select board or the town needs to appoint somebody. Doesn't have to be select board, doesn't have to be town manager.
It can't be a select board
No, it
member.
has to be an
Because we
employee.
have employees, because you have
To be
employees.
an ethics liaison.
Yeah.
And I guess that appointment would start
Do
January
we have
1st, or?
a job description?
Well, here, I have the Act 171, and
It's in our packet.
it's in your packet, it's long. And so they created, because remember when
Right, I read
Kirk
that.
was here, I was really grumpy about it. Creation of municipal code of ethics, so it's several parts, and one of them is that, you know, there's going to be ethics training required within 120 days after the election. We have to post our municipal code of ethics and information stuff. We put some stuff on the website. I have to look through a policy. If not, we're going to have to write one about municipal, you know, how to do procedures of investigation complaints. It will, yes, it will be 2 hours of ethics training that you'll be required. And it won't be just us, it'll be the town clerk, the select board, I think the BCA, and maybe even the DRB, any like quasi judicial. So I have some of it, and then some of it, the ethics is putting out on their website, and they haven't developed it yet. So as that comes, but the current statute is that you're required to appoint an ethics liaison, but because you have employees, it has to be an employee. It can't be one of you.
Oh, it has to be an employee. Okay.
Yeah, I would have made sure it was one of you, but I was on the hunt, but I
Can't
read
pin that one on us.
I tried, and I read it twice just to be
So
sure.
it has to be an employee. Do you have any employees that
I don't right
would
now.
like to do that, or?
Well, because you know what, until we flush out the entire job description and do the policy, I'm not going to ask anyone to do this until we've flushed out all the details. So my suggestion is you make it me for now, and then let's get the policy drafted. Let's let the Ethics Commission come out with the rules and whatever, and then see if we have someone. Because I don't want to saddle an employee with this when I can't tell them what it is. Might as well just be me for
Add
now.
something else to your plate.
Why not? You know what? Why not?
Well, I make a motion that we appoint the town manager to be our liaison to the ethics committee.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
As soon as I can make sure it's a select board member, I'll call you, Joy.
I was thinking Pam already. so-
Yeah, she doesn't have enough on her
Yeah,
plate.
I'm not telling her. But yeah, until we know more, I
I was
just don't,
thinking Richard.
I just don't think it's fair until we know more. Richard would be great.
And then,
I don't think it's fair that they write these 7-page documents and then you've got to do it.
I know.
With no input.
This is how it works. This is the trickle-down effect, or unfunded mandates, as I like to call them. You know, there's no dollar attached, but it's going to cost us time. I didn't write a town manager.
I was gonna say, I must have
No, we
missed it,
just-
because I don't remember seeing the
I
town
didn't-
manager's report.
I didn't write one because we just met
Okay.
last week, but I did want to tell you that just this evening, before I came to the meeting, Rick Benson gave me his letter of resignation for the town meeting committee. You know, there's another longer name to that. But he did put in his letter of resignation, effective 12/31/24. I'll put it in your packet for next time, but it'll be already after the date. So I just wanted to let you know that he is stepping down as of December 31st. He had a meeting tonight, and I heard him telling folks tonight. So it's understandable. Rick has done a lot for Bethel, so just so you know. And then as far as schedule, the town office, everybody will close at noon on Christmas Eve day. People have to take vacation.
time if they're not working their full shift. Then, you know, we're still open the day after Christmas, all that. So that, and then I talked to Kelly the other day, remember, we don't mail the town reports anymore, but the postcards will be going out. I gave that information to Kelly the other day to make sure it goes to the printer. So we will be mailing the postcards out, letting everybody know where they will be able to pick up the town report once we have a better date for when it will be printed. So we're still moving forward on that. I got the actual grant application today after we did all the work on Sand Hill. So that's come through finally. So we should be able to get my grant reimbursement hopefully the end of this month, very beginning of January. So that'll wrap up. The water project is wrapping up. There will be some stuff that's going to carry over, obviously the Crystal Drive pump station, but I have a new schedule for them. They've come in, they're insulating, and then Champlin will come in and do all the updates. We'll have to flush that system before it attaches onto the water system, depending on the situation with the pumps, we will be getting, we may be moving forward with Geico this winter and not waiting until spring. It just really depends right now on the situation with the wellhead. Monash did not order it, as I told you before. Now, it was supposed to be months out. Now they're saying they can have it manufactured, and that would cut the time frame. And I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it at this point. But
Going with the alternate wasn't going to work?
I think we're still waiting for pricing if we go to a submersible pump versus that. So Richard and I are still in limbo there. I talked to AJ today. We have someone coming this week or next to look at the underground fuel tank at the town garage, which is going to be pricey. We're going to have two choices: dig it up and replace it underground, dig it up and go above ground. If we go above ground, we do have the fuel tank that we had from the fire department before. There may be some sort of containment unit, but we're looking at getting estimates for that. We have one, and it's ugly. This is not going to be a cheap endeavor. So hopefully we'll have more information for the next select board meeting about what that's looking like. I also talked to AJ about, moving forward with the new town garage so that it kind of coincides with losing the payment of the town hall. And he actually had a really out-of-the-box idea, which is consider building a pole barn. Then maybe we don't have to build the town garage as big so that everything could be in storage, but he could use it as cold storage on the off season. Even if we stored the grader in there, we could still plug it in. But because at this point we're looking for town garage, salt shed. So if there was going to be a savings, a pole barn is going to be a heck of a lot cheaper to build, probably square footage wise, than it's going to cost us to build the town garage. So I just told him it was something to think about over the winter. Come to me with some dimensions and we'll start kind of flushing that out. So,
And the salt sheds, normally they have grants for those.
Well,
So if we do end up doing something like that.
we don't qualify because.
For a salt shed?
No, not the grant, because we're not close enough to the river. I already tried.
We can move it.
Well, we might have to.
But normally there's grant information out there, or grant funding for salt sheds.
And we did look for it, but it's only.
Just because of the contamination.
But you have to be within so many feet of a tributary or this, that, or the other. I tried last year. Yeah, right. Put it down. Well, there you go. We'll close the shooting range and put the salt shed down there. Exactly. Oh, we don't need to. We already own our own. But yeah, so anyway, so those things are all moving forward, trying to button up the last of the grants and waiting. Pinello Bridge is out to bid, so hopefully we'll have some hard numbers on that and finally put that to bed so Brian can drive by and wave to his beautiful bridge to one house. So things are moving forward.
Select board meeting minutes from the 9th. Any corrections, or are we good to approve as written?
Was that a motion, Paul?
Yes, I'll move we accept them as written.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Other communications, there was some committee meeting minutes in there. I had a couple of questions on the budget status reports.
Just grab them. Okay.
So maybe it's just the way that the funding came in. So on the revenue piece of it, on the state and federal revenue piece, we're already at 93% for the year?
Yeah, when you,
So we
sometimes,
can get that quarter ahead of time,
Yeah.
or did they do an increase?
no, they paid ahead, because
Oh,
sometimes
okay.
they'll do that when you have towns have flood
Okay.
damage, they'll pay in advance, so that's what they did.
And then we haven't taken any, well, I know we're trying to phase that out of the budget, but the delinquent tax or
We'll leave
penalty,
it.
or do we just put that in we don't really keep track of it?
We don't do
Okay.
it there, it'll come out in
Gotcha.
our tax receivable.
And then the other question I had,
You saw, I labeled where I put the VOSHA fines.
Yep.
Under Public Works and.
page 5, which was it says other, it was the EV charger for 1,600, but then
Yep.
the actual, never mind, that's percent, okay,
Yep.
never mind, because it said
Okay.
32, it was exactly double. I was like, did you do it twice?
Yeah, no.
Okay, now I'm seeing it's
Okay.
percentage. And then, what do I have here?
So I made the note on here, okay, on page 7, that Pam has a grant to offset the expenses of voting and equipment supplies, so she has a grant for that. Obviously, we're short this year, Warva, $13,626, so just say no, because I'm trying to find money as I go along.
Right.
And then, of course, you've got the sewer water budgets, and the bills are due, because we are apparently very grinchy, they're due 12/26.
I noticed that.
And,
The other piece I had comment about was the material page on page 3. So being that we bought, I want to say a half a year's worth of sand that we had left over.
Yep.
Bought or was left over from last year. We had budgeted 75 for this year, and we have nothing to date on that. So are we plan on bringing sand in, or is this a billing hasn't hit, or?
we are bringing sand in. The problem was the stormwater project. We couldn't have Pike.
Get there.
We're buying our sand from Pike, and we couldn't haul, but we are getting bills like crazy right now. So the next one will really change.
I mean, I would assume that we're not going to spend 75,000.
I don't think
Because we
so.
had half a year's worth of sand
Yeah.
that we didn't use
No,
last
so
year.
we're hauling now, but we couldn't
Okay.
ask them to haul because we stockpiled at the fire department and at the rec area, and you know how well that went, and for
Okay.
other materials. So sand, as soon as Sand Hill was completed, AJ reached out to his contact, and they started hauling.
So I know you were getting manufactured sand from Pike, but
Yeah.
do you buy any natural sand
No.
anymore?
Nope,
Nothing?
we get 3/8-inch stone and washed and mix it. No,
Okay.
nope. And, yeah, so no, so that's why. We couldn't keep putting people up the road while they were tearing it up, so that's why the delay.
The log trucks were bad
Yeah, wait till you
enough.
see the next bill. There's a whole stack of Pike bills. I saw them. So,
Yeah. I'll bring a lunch.
yeah, it's payable time.
Okay. I had one other one, but I can't buy anymore. Okay.
And,
Anybody have anything else with the budget status report? Any other budget, any other information or anything coming before the board?
I just wanted to say thank you, that tonight is your last night as chair, and the select board will be choosing their next chair at their January meeting. So I just wanted to say thank you.
I want to say thank you. I don't want to have a moment of silence, I want to have a moment of hooray. Because Chris has been an incredible leader for the select board for the past, 10 years or close to it. And it's been a real pleasure being on the board with him.
So much so you did it twice.
I know.
Came back?
You had to
I
come
know.
back.
Came back to do it again.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
you've
that
been
won't
chair
happen-
for 6
That
years?
won't happen again.
I don't know, something like
7
that.
years?
6,
But
7.
Whole time I've
thank
been-
you very much. It's been an incredible
6.
leader for this board. And I don't think the folks in town really realize what it takes to be a board member, let alone a board chair. And you've done excellent through the good times and the ugly times. You've been there every meeting, and really, thank you very much. Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Thank you.
And I think, any of us that have ever served in the public, we don't get on thinking that we're going to be here for 10 years or whatever. We get on to, come on and do our civic duty. And some of us are here longer than other ones. And, I will say that for anybody that thinks that they don't have enough time, like, you can make time for these positions. And I used to always say, I got little kids and I just don't have time, but someday when my kids are out of the house, I'll have time and I'll be on a board. And then all of a sudden Carl stood up in the meeting, he's like, because we wanted to go to 5-person and nominated myself, and it's like, oh man, I got kids, a family, but and the common thing when you ask somebody, hey, you want to be on the board, like, I got no time for that, But I mean, you really truly can find the time. Like, you might have to just reprioritize some things, and it's definitely, and I served on the school board as well for a couple of years, and boards they're tough, and I try to never take things personally, and we all have our own opinions of how we think things should work in life, and that's, everybody comes from different walks. And I know one thing I always tried to bring to the board was just, that everybody got to have a voice on the board. I've been on boards before where nobody talks other than the chairman, or wants to even speak. And I think one thing I am proud of, on the 9 years is, I've served with many different people on the board. I counted at one point there was about 14 different people, over that 10 years, get mixtures of different people. And I think one thing here at Bethel is we have had on the board since I've been here 5 people, which people said would never happen. And people from all walks of life. And very seldom do we have a board that's made up with the same exact thinkers. And, we seem to always have, people on the board that keep the other people's, on their toes. And Gene's been on the board and others as well. And I very seldom have we ever not been able to come to a compromise. I don't know how I got onto it, but I watched a meeting at a city council meeting, and it was almost like a WWE wrestling event. Like, I mean, they were, 2 of them here on this, nobody's budging, and they don't want to, can't pass anything. And I've been very proud of our board that we, if it's whatever it is, policing or whatever it is, we always seem to come together and compromise for people, even if it might be something that you didn't really think we should do or not. So, but everybody's got to step down at some point. So, but no, we have a really awesome group of people, and Therese makes things pretty easy, and so.
Don't worry, you still, just because you're stepping out of his chair, you still are on the board.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I just want to say thank you, and
thanks.
I appreciate that. So, all right. So hope everybody's got a Merry Christmas, right, or Happy Hanukkah, or whatever it is that you celebrate, because Hanukkah's Christmas Eve.
Now we can eat the cookies?
You can eat the cookies.
Hopefully a
Yep,
little bit
and
of
that's
snow so the ice goes away.
Yeah, exactly. And that's Dave Eddie's brother's fruit cake that he loves, but he's willing to share with us. So there you go.
Do not throw it away. If you do not want it, I will take it back.
Dave will hurt you.
Well, I guess I can make a motion to adjourn.
There you go.
Second.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.